This is the Better Life, Better Work show, and I'm your host, Allison Crow. I'm an intuitive life and business coach here to help you create better life and better work. I help super successful people, the recovering overachievers, put the soul back in their lives, and I help soulful people create success. On this show, topics range from the mystic to the logistic, and our content will support your being and your doing while on your path to create better life and better work. More is not better. Better is better. Hey, we're live. Welcome, podcast listeners. It's full moon today on the recording, not on the listening, but on the recording. So quickly, I'm going to pull a card for you guys from, this is specifically for my podcast listeners. Today on our live call, I'm going to be pulling full moon cards for my clients, just quickies. But today, before we start the podcast, I'm going to give you a couple of updates and then pull a quick card for all of us. And then we're going to talk about our word of the year. Do you do a word of year? Do you remember your word of the year? And it's interesting because with all that has been going on with COVID-19 and shelter in place and shifting and pivoting and doing all these things, I don't know about you, but it was easy to forget my words of the year. And then I'm diving in deeper. So let's, there were a couple other things I wanted to tell you. Oh, this was fun. So, one of my colleagues sent me a boxer, the other day, and she was like, I noticed you had really big energy the last couple of weeks. And I have, and I needed some big energy, and I'm coming a little bit back to center. I'm not low. I feel really good, but it's so funny because she wasn't making up anything about my big energy. And if you listen to last week's podcast, it was big energy. But it's so funny how that small voice in my head was like, oh my God, Allison, you're too much. So I just thought that was funny. I was like, no, that's true. I did have big energy this week or last week. And, I have had big energy this week, and I had a great call with my coach. I'm in a mastermind, and we have one call a month, and I had a great call with her yesterday, and she helped me see some really deep, good stuff. And it reminded me of my word of the year. And so I popped into my marketing plan and I changed the topic, and we're going to talk about that today in just a minute. But real quickly, just for my podcast listeners and live viewers. So as always, we're recording this live on Facebook, and I'm going to pull a card. So I'm pulling today from the Wild Offering Oracle by Tosha Silver. Just a sweet deck. It's also illustrated by Kate Daisy, one of my favorite watercolor and gouache artists. And so the card that I pulled for everybody listening to episode 97 of the Better Life, Better Work show is challenges. Really, universe? Really? Challenges. Unbearable situations throw you directly into God's arms if you are open. Please take over, divine, and guide the right actions. Please take this burden and show me your will. And I love that. So, this morning when I was walking the dogs, we walk the dogs separately just because they behave better when there's only one walking. Bill usually walks Clementine on a longer walk, and then I'll take the two older dogs, Leroy and Rocky, on their own individual walks. And I was finishing up my second walk, and I had this thought come into my head about how much I've been asking God for help lately. And so, for me to use the word God is a really big deal because for a long time, that word was very triggering for me. And for a long time, my spirituality was really about connecting with and listening to spirit. And I have found myself recently asking, and maybe some of you, the way, we all probably pray our different ways, but usually the way I pray is in an affirmation style and a gratitude style, and something shifted. Maybe it was challenges where I have literally been asking God to bless situations, asking God for the highest and best, asking God for this or better. And so I think this card is sweet. Unbearable situations throw you directly into God's arms if you are open. Please take over, divine, and guide the right actions. Please take this burden and show me your will. And yeah, so I want to remind all of us, including myself, that, some I've heard it said before, like meditation is listening. And that prayer is communication with God. And I know a lot of times I'm just telling God things. And then I've been willing to ask. And there's something, I don't know if I want to call it humble, but there's a moment of surrender. And yesterday in talking with my coach, I think that's where when we were talking about some stuff that was on the surface and it hit me, I was like, oh, there's this surrender piece. And so it made me think as I wrote down my notes, because I was kind of all over the place. And my coach does this funny thing where she just looks at me. She just looks at me. She didn't say anything. I'm going to try that with you guys who are my clients lately. It makes me nervous. And what I love that it does is underneath the nervousness, it gets me a little deeper. And so that gets me back to word of the year. At the end of our call, I was like, oh, that's it. So I didn't just have a word of the year, overachiever that I am. I had 3 phrases, always, and has been, this is the 6th year. It started out once as my word, and I just decided to keep it, is open-hearted. And then the other 2 phrases were slow tango and big profit. And I tell you what, open-hearted has become a way of life for me. It is constantly in my prayers as open-hearted. And slow tango has saved my ass, especially when I get spinning too fast. And so what my coach helped me see, we weren't talking about word of the year, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm circling back to my words of the year. And I know a lot of people thought, my word of the year isn't relevant. I listened to my friend, Stacey Harris, did a podcast this week, maybe Tuesday. Her podcast is Uncommonly More. And she talked about lessons she learned. And her word of the year was efficient, maybe? I think, it was efficient. And she realized like a whole nother layer deeper how much that would be helpful. And so I want to encourage you today to go back to your words of the year and dig a few layers deep and reflect on how is your word of the year showing up? How is your word of the year reflecting on what is helpful for you during this different time? And so I think about slow tango, and it was interesting. I'll go ahead and share with you guys. I had talked to my audience the other day about starting my book. And every once in a while, I've already started my book. And then I also have some content that is bubbling up inside of me. But what my coach recognized was like there was this sense of hurry and urgency. And I think she was laughing because my business 3 years ago set out to make a sustainable business, a simple business. And I am on that plateau. Like I'm sitting on the park bench, and instead of sitting and enjoying the view and taking care of my clients, which I am doing, but it's funny how I get itchy instead of appreciating and just moving forward in what I have, how I get itchy to create something new. And when I do that, that energy gets real big and I get real excited and I get real Enneagram 7. And I've noticed that when my Enneagram 7, which is the part of me that likes for things to be fun, exciting, and challenging, when it gets off center It can go either too high or too low. And if it goes too high, then I'm usually avoiding something uncomfortable. And I realized just in her reflections yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like pushing into these projects because I don't want to be bored. And which is funny because allowing some things to be boring in my life and business has actually really served my soul. It's served my business. And it's created something sustainable and enjoyable. It just goes at a different pace than I'm used to. Now, it doesn't mean that I can't go from that pace from time to time. But my coach was asking me this really good question yesterday. She was like, why? Like, what's really important about these things? And y'all, I didn't have any good answers. And if I didn't have any really good answers, then it means I was just what I call frothing, right? Like I'm creating some drama for excitement. I'm creating some drama for something to do, which is funny because that in April, I started my Spark and Hustle Mastermind. So I have a high-level mastermind of high-achieving women. And with that program, I doubled the amount of time that I was in my calendar. So when I have just Soulful Success, my coaching membership, I have 2 calls a week. And then the rest of my time is connecting, marketing, and I'm off. I'm resting, I'm playing. I've built a full-time business part-time. And so with this new program, I did adjust my calendar and I've been acclimating to, instead of 2 to 3 calls a week, having a couple of calls a day, just a couple, still not working in the afternoons, mostly working in the morning. And it's funny because it was like, just because I put a little bit more on my plate, all of a sudden I found myself, it was like I go from walking to starting a slow jog. And the slow jog started building this artificial momentum. Maybe y'all will remember this reference. So this is a pop culture reference on Friends. Remember when Phoebe runs? And Phoebe, so if you don't know what that is, just Google Phoebe running on Friends. And there's this whole episode where Phoebe runs and she runs with her arms and legs flailing. And so my, nice and sturdy walk turns into a nice and sturdy jog. And then all of a sudden I find myself losing intentionality, losing my slow tango pace, and I start running like Phoebe on Friends. And when I run like Phoebe on Friends, it requires an amount of energy that does not help me create. It's not useful. There's too much energy that is spun out. And so, I don't want the movement of my life to be like Phoebe running on Friends. Now, Phoebe running on Friends loved it. She chose that pace. But the pace that I have chosen at this season and this time, and that feels really good, especially when I meditate on it, when I think on it, when I'm aware of it, is what I call slow tango. And slow tango, there is a song on a playlist. So slow tango, I've mentioned this before in podcasts, but my friend Christina Berkeley shared with us one time this video of her at a conference. And I don't think it was planned, but she and this other guy did a tango to this slow song. And so normally you think of tango as really fast and yes, totally sexy. And when I saw this video 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know how many, quite a while ago, clearly it left an impression on me. I saw this video and I heard this music and I heard from God to my ears, this is the pace that will light up your life, Allison. And what I loved is that it was still a dance. It wasn't like a turtle slow. It wasn't like a sloth slow. It was still feminine and beautiful. And it still had a few sexy, wild moves. And in the show notes, I'll have to put the video and I'll also have to put the link to the Spotify. Let me get it up in my library and I'll tell you what it is. So I listened to this song every single day, you guys. It's like a metronome for my life. Slow Tango. And it's so funny to me how that dropped in this year. Like my word was going to be Slow Tango. And I found myself in the last couple of months with planning, right? So Camp Star Heart was supposed to happen. At the end of Camp Star Heart, there's some opportunities to continue the work with me. And I had this bump up in income in March and April. And for some reason, instead of slow tangoing and enjoying that sexy move, it's like my subconscious caught the old striver and runner in me. And so then I start getting thirsty, and running like Phoebe, like a crazy woman. And I'm thirsty. More is better, more is better, more is better. And I'm so thankful to Tara yesterday for helping me recognize, is more really better? Is more really better? And right now, better is better. And it is so tempting to slip off of our aligned path. It is so human to slip off of our aligned path. And that's why today I want to remind you to check in with your word of the year and listen to what it has to say for you. Listen to what lessons it still wants to teach you, even and especially because things are really different than we thought they would be. They're really different than we thought that they would be right now. A lot of us, a lot of my audience is grieving trips and graduations and events and anniversaries. A lot of our kids are grieving their senior years. And I know there are many people out there just trying to figure out what they're going to do for work. There's so many different experiences going on. And so pay attention to your words. So mine were open my heart to this experience. And as I've talked about before, one of the things my little brain does to try to gain control in a time when I have no certainty is to have a really strong opinion. And so every single day I remind myself that I think I know everything. I think I'm right. But really all I ever know is that I am here and here I am. And I breathe. Slow Tango by, let's see what this guy's, you think I'd know. I don't want to say it wrong. Hold on. It's on here. Okay. The Christina Berkeley, I follow her Spotify thing. The album is called Go Nightbrook by Ludovicio Einaudi. I don't know if I said that right. And the one that I love is the Snow Prelude number 2. Ooh, and it just started playing in my ear, which we don't want to do because that's copywritten. And then my third one is Big Profit. And so it feels really, I notice my armpit sweating when I think about still having a big profit year. So far, the first quarter of the year has been my best first quarter ever. And it's interesting because my subconscious protective self wants to run out of scarcity. It wants to strive out of scarcity and to create big profit, which for me is not just financial profit. It's emotional profit. Both to profit, Prophet, and profit. And so I love that what Slow Tango does is it reminds me about aligning with big profit. And so how do I big profit financially? How do I big profit? So right now, like it feels like we are debting a lot. When I say debt, like we have these expenses, we have these losses taken out, right? Losses of experiences and losses of events. And we feel like our experience bank account. I love when my husband vacuums when I'm doing a podcast. It's my favorite thing ever. Almost as favorite as when my dogs bark when I'm doing a podcast recording. So, we've had these losses of experiences. Some people have had loss of income, loss of certainty. And so how do we refill those bank accounts? How do we profit experience-wise? And yeah, that's what I got for you guys today. Oh, I looked up. It's time for me to go to a coaching call. So that's what I want to share is I want to share with you guys to check in with your word of the year. Send me a message on Facebook or Instagram if you share the podcast. Let me know what your word of the year is and what insights come up for you around reconnecting with your words of the year. Thank you for listening, and want to give you one last chance to join Soulful Success. The doors close May 16th. The last day they're open is the 15th. So I will wake up on the morning of the 16th and close them. Would love for you to come and be a member of Soulful Success by going to coachwithallison.com. You can join us today and before the doors close, and the doors will stay closed all summer long. All right, you guys, peace out. Thanks for watching and listening and for sharing. And as always, your reviews are like an amazing tip in the tip jar. As always, thanks for listening. Totally appreciate you thinking about somebody who might really love this episode and you sharing it with them. Also, I always appreciate your reviews. It's like podcast currency. It's like a tip in the jar saying thanks. And finally, if you want to share on social media, a screenshot, or any insights you get from listening to this episode, I will totally respond. You can share with the hashtag #BetterLifeBetterWorkShow. This show is sponsored by my 3 rescued dogs, Leroy Brown, Clementine, and Rocky Potato. They're here to remind you to consider adoption when you get your next pet. More is not better, better is better.